Everyone, welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Pache. Thanks again for joining us, continuing to bring you some of the biggest headlines and top stories. And one of those headlines happened within the last couple of hours. We thought maybe next week we would hear about President Trump's new pick for a Fed chair, and then on the black carpet for the premiere for Melania, he made the announcement there in a question saying, yeah, it'll be tomorrow. So nonchalant right there from the president once again, but we'll be getting that news tomorrow. So let's break it down a little bit, get some analysis on who that pick might be. Let's bring in our next guest to help break it all down. Chris Rugaber, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox with the AP covering the Fed. And yeah, this news really being talked about right now.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a surprise. I mean, he did say something earlier today that it would be next week, and then said tomorrow. So definitely fueling a lot of speculation. There's been speculation all along about who he would pick, and then this sort of turbocharges it. And then we'll just have to see what happens tomorrow. There's obviously a lot of names floating around.
And who are the top contenders that many people are thinking that it's going to be?
Well, we know he narrowed it down to four. So the top contenders were Kevin Warsh, a former Fed governor, Kevin Hassett, who is currently Trump's top economic advisor at the White House, Chris Waller, who is a member of the Fed's governing board, and then an investment manager, longtime Wall Street veteran, Rick Reeder. But in the chatter now is that Warsh may be the one getting the nod. There's various bits and pieces out there. He may have been at the White House earlier today, and the president himself said something like, "This is someone I could have picked a few years ago." And we know that Warsh was a finalist back in 2017 when Trump ended up picking Jerome Powell. So that little comment from Trump has got a lot of people thinking that Warsh is the most likely at this point.
And typically, when a president makes the announcement, what do the markets do when that announcement is made?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it will depend on who the person is. I think there's speculation that if it is someone like Hassett, the president's current top advisor, he is someone that I think it would be seen as likely to cut rates, and so the stocks might go up in that case. In the case of Kevin Warsh, his reputation has been more of a so-called hawk, or someone who typically prefers to keep rates a little bit higher in order to fight inflation. Of course, we know that the president wants rates to come down. So Warsh has said more recently that he would support rate cuts in the current environment. He's talked about how we may have a artificial intelligence-led boom, and that would lower inflation and so forth. So that would allow him to cut rates. That could also maybe cause a drop in interest rates in the market, might help the stock market. But at the same time, if there's a concern the Fed will cut rates too much, then longer term interest rates could go up higher, so out of fears of inflation. So it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts. There's a lot of different moving pieces.
And what about the thoughts, too, that some are thinking, they're worried about the Fed's independence? President Trump has said, over and over again that he wants rates cut. He wants, they should be down 1 to 2%. And then he also had a mention there when he brings on somebody for Fed chair, he says, when they get the nod, then they change and they're not the same people that they were when you were talking to them about the job. Is there worry that whoever this pick might be might tamper some of that independence?
Well, yes, very much. And I think with Warsh, I'm not sure how the markets will come down because, again, his history is more hawkish and more of a high rate person. And so that would go against the president's views. Generally, the concern is that politicians always want lower interest rates. Of course, it encourages more borrowing and it could encourage more job creation in the short run. the concern then is that in the longer run, the lower interest rates and the overheated economy could fuel inflation. And so, whereas to fight inflation, you then often have to raise interest rates, as the Fed did back in 2022, and that's not always very popular. So that's the concern a lot of economists have, that if it becomes too political at the Fed, then over time inflation starts to creep up. The last time you really saw presidents really pressure the Fed back in the 1960s under President Johnson, 1970s under President Nixon. That's when you saw those big inflation spikes that persisted for a long time. So that's what people are concerned about. But who knows how some of these folks will play out. I mean, perhaps a Kevin Warsh or any of the four could make their own decisions and not do what the president wants. Although, as he said, then he would almost certainly, he might renew some of his criticism that we've heard him hand out with Chair Powell. But he's going to try, obviously, and I think in the short run, we can expect whoever he picks is probably going to push for lower interest rates this year. I think that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, we will definitely all be watching tomorrow for the big announcement. Chris, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox, giving us a great preview of what we might expect tomorrow. We appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Take care. All right, everyone. We will take a 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. Stay right here with us. More to come in moments.